On the outskirts of Manchester, Ashton-under-Lyne, population 43,000. This town was the very first in the UK to experiment with universal credit, a single welfare payment that merges 6 benefits, from unemployment benefits to disability pensions, including housing benefits. This was in 2013 under David Cameron's Conservative government, and the impact has been disastrous across the UK, starting with Ashton, the former cotton weaving capital of the UK, which has been hit hard by deindustrialisation. The reform was denounced by a local activist, Charlotte Hughes, a journalist whose inflammatory articles inspired a famous film director.
That's myself and Ken Loach, the writer and the filmmaker. Ken did communicate with me and he used part of the script to the film, part of the film, based on some things that I'd wrote about at the Job Centre.
The film I, Daniel Blake, which was awarded the Palme d'Or at Cannes, describes the grotesque struggle of unemployed people against job centres.
Je vous demande de vous en aller, ça suffit ma situation et vous vous en foutez. Il me reste pas un rond dans mon porte-monnaie.
C'est vous qui faites une scène, d'accord?
Non de Dieu!
Qui est le prochain à passer?
C'est moi.
Ça vous dérange si cette jeune mère s'inscrit avant vous?
Non, non,
Ce qu'on va faire, c'est que je vais vous prier de sortir tout de suite.
Their word is the most important thing to me. Not about me, it's about what they want and what they think. You know, and the way that the government treats them.
This is what happened to Charlotte's daughter Eleanor. 6 months pregnant, the Ashton-under-Lyne Job Centre asked her to do community service if she wanted to keep her benefits, before suspending her payments, deeming her unable to work due to her condition. Ever since, Charlotte has been at war with the Department of Labour.
Don't be surprised if they phone the police.
So every Thursday for the past 8 years, Charlotte and her youngest daughter, Tallulah, have been protesting at the Ashton Job Centre. Since the reform of universal credit, the job centres no longer only deal with the unemployed. They also distribute benefits for pregnant women, families, the disabled and housing allowances. A sort of one-stop shop, a must for all those who need social assistance to live.
It's awful now. They've got desks with numbers on now. It's awful.
Charlotte isn't allowed in, so she hands out leaflets at the door.
Would you like a leaflet? Would you like a leaflet, darling? It'll help you.
In this leaflet, a method to help them challenge the job centre's decisions in court.
Are you going in the job centre? Like a leaflet, darling. Help you. They'll tell you what they don't tell you. Good luck. Good luck. The most important thing is that when you make a claim from the job centre, and if you have to go to tribunal, which often is the case, you've got all the proof that you've got, all the evidence.
What Charlotte denounces is the policy of arbitrary sanctions left to the side judgment of the counsellor, which creates an environment of unease. This man, for example, was struck off after missing a simple phone call from the job centre.
I explained to them, I said, look, I can't afford to pay my mobile phone bill. They're cutting me off.
Yeah. DWP people sanction.
Yeah.
No question. If you don't answer a phone call to them...
You get cut off. Yeah. They don't give monkeys if you've got any money in your struggle.
All they care about is you doing what they tell you to do.
Yeah. If you don't do what they tell you to do, that's it, they cut your money off.
Arbitrary bans, and there's more. Some decisions by job centres are said to be made without taking into account the health status of the recipients. Like this man with a crutch.
Look at my leg, yeah? See my leg?
Yeah. Jesus.
This is because of the dole. Their doctors said, you can go... I've got a bulging disc on my spine, and I've got a leg that's had an hip operation, and I ripped it apart because of the dole. I had 3 years of my life on £43 a week as a disabled man. I couldn't feed myself.
They've got no clue about how these people have to survive. They've got no clue about the medical conditions. They're employed to make them fit for work.
It's estimated that since its introduction in Ashton 9 years ago, universal credit and its new rules of allocation have forced 1.5 million people into poverty. One thing is certain, since the different forms of social assistance were merged into one, the number of food banks in the country has exploded. 10 years ago, there were about 50 of them. Today, there are more than 2,800. And among them, Mark, the pizza chef with the big heart. In addition to the traditional hot meals he continues to offer in his restaurant, he now offers emergency bags containing food for several days.
All of these bags are for cooking. These blue bags are for people who are genuinely homeless on the street. They have no cooking facilities.
People can also help themselves to hygiene products. In England, 1 in 5 people can no longer afford them. All these items have been donated by companies or individuals. Donations that are sometimes surprising.
Local man died, and at his funeral they had all of this food. A lot of food was left over. Rather than throw the food away, they brought it to us.
A welcome donation, as when meals are distributed, Mark's food bank gets really full.
What, pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
What's shocking is that this reliance on charities was planned at the highest level of government. In 2010, during the peak of former Prime Minister David Cameron's austerity policies, with this reform of universal credit, the Conservative leader backed massive cuts in social welfare. According to the NGO Human Rights Watch, benefits for families and children were cut by 44%. So to make the pill go down easier, Cameron invented the concept of big society.
The big society is about a huge culture change, where people, in their everyday lives, in their homes, in their neighbourhoods, in their workplaces, don't always turn to officials, local authorities or central government for answers to the problems they face, but instead feel both free and powerful enough to help themselves and their own communities.
Last spring, while the former Prime Minister was on a trip to Paris, we wanted to take the opportunity to ask him about his record on social policies. A few days before our interview, David Cameron proudly posted on Twitter pictures of him helping out at a food bank. A post that was heavily criticised, notably by this opposition MP.
In the UK, lots of people have said that the big society was a cover to austerity measures.
Now, that's often said. I think it's simply not true. Whoever had been Prime Minister in 2010 would have had to take difficult decisions. I don't deny that. And actually, we reduced the budget deficit by 2/3. We ended up with the fastest growing economy in the G7. We created 2 million jobs, 1 million more businesses. You know, we recovered the UK economy.
The poverty increased.
No, well, that's not true. No, I think, look, there has been an increase in the use of food banks, and part of that is because the previous government, before me, they did not allow the job centres to refer people to food banks. They didn't want the bad publicity. I think that is bad. You know, if people need help, you should direct them to where there is help available. And my government let that happen.
David Cameron is convinced that his policy has stimulated the work of food banks in the country, something for citizens to be thankful for. A view far removed from the economic realities faced by millions of Britons. In the queue at Mark's food bank tonight, Graham, an army veteran.
Why are you come here? After working all my life, Royal Marines, civil servant, Edinburgh Assay office, you know, a lot of places I've worked. I thought I'm not going to end up sleeping rough. So I did the work myself to a sufficient standard that I could actually stay in the property.
There were no signs to predict that the 58-year-old Scotsman would find himself in poverty overnight. Just before the pandemic, Graham Wilson was a craftsman in the building trade. But due to COVID, he went bankrupt and moved to Blackpool to try and get back on his feet.
This is basically what they call a studio flat, which is open plan. Living room and bedroom is the one place. kitchen area, obviously.
In his former life, Graham could earn the equivalent of €2,000 a month. He now survives on €400 in unemployment benefit. After paying his rent, he has nothing left to feed himself and his dog, and even less to heat his home. The British have coined a phrase to describe this dilemma, which affects 16 million people. Heat or eat.
I'd never understood the term heat or eat. So you've got to, what do?
Graham has decided that comfort is not an issue. It's 15 degrees here during the day and 8 degrees at night.
This jacket, I've had this on since 6 o'clock this morning. Body warmer. Oh, sorry, jumper and T-shirt, so that I could leave that fire off. It's a small fan heater. Doesn't really heat the room. Believe it or not, 5 hours, that's £10.
Graham knows his precise electricity consumption as he has a meter that works with a rechargeable key.
Energy suppliers would come out and fit what they called a prepaid meter, which means that the tenant has to pay for his electricity before he actually receives it.
He had no choice. When customers have trouble paying their bills on time, energy suppliers automatically install these prepaid meters. 4 million British households are now equipped with them. A few days later, we meet up with Graham. His meter is at 0, so he has to go to the local supermarket to buy some electricity.
Mister, want something to eat? Can you top my electricity up for me, Lee, please? Thank you.
How much would you like?
20, please. There you go.
£20, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At £20, it will only last Graham 4 days. While electricity is already expensive for everyone in England, electricity sold in this way is charged 10% more than with a conventional meter.
Why, if I'm paying them in advance, why have I got to pay them more than the people who are quite wealthy, quite affluent, and there's the lower class people? And they have nothing. They get no concessions, nothing whatsoever.
For now, Graham is still managing to pay for his electricity, but winter is coming, and in the north of England, it gets particularly harsh. Such unstable conditions can have a serious impact on health.